We are now entering into our regular city council meeting. On our agendas, it is number 3. Today is December 10, 2019. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Section 5, approval of minutes. 5.1, minutes from November 22nd, 2019. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the minutes of November 22nd, 2019.
Thank you, Kaylin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Karen. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. On to mayor and council reports. I will go first, and I will be brief. I attended a Utah Transportation Commission meeting with Karen. To date, UDOT has spent $213 million and completed 87 projects in Grand County. We've got pending projects happening right now, or ongoing projects on Highway 128 or River Road, 313 shoulder widening, the 191 North Corridor, widening our Main Street, and the downtown garage that's been funded completely through hotspot funding, a grant through UDOT, as well as dispersed parking and a rail study. So at the meeting, I made a comment that was very favorable, so I thought I'd share it tonight. When I used to work with USDA through partnership, we had a joke. We said, USD, yay, because we were so happy about the partnership with the agency. And so I was trying to come up with one for UDOT. And the phrase that I came up with was, I love you, Dot. And Carlos, the executive director, thought that was hilarious. But really, we have been so fortunate over the past several years to be receiving all of the, not just attention, but funding from UDOT. I also attended a League of Cities and Towns board meeting. Oh, and I was going to read the legislative priority list. Sorry, give me just 1 second. I didn't want to print it. So the League's priorities for this upcoming legislative session, in which they will be defending us as cities. And I'm going to read the topics. There are items within each topic, but ensuring sustainable municipal finance, and that's largely tax reform, prioritizing community-first economic development, that's through GoEd and other incentive programs through the state, preserving traditional municipal authority over land use and balancing the needs of today's and tomorrow's residents. So that's, again, the local control that they continue to work on our behalf. Investing in state and local transportation funding for a variety of modes. That's especially important for us in rural. Protecting water rights and quality, and conserving and developing water resources. So sometimes it feels like we're alone, but water audit, water banking, and secondary water metering are things we share with other communities as well. Providing for health, public safety, and welfare of our residents. That's everything from public safety to EMS to funding for homeless resource centers. Improving air quality. Ensuring effective local governance. So those are the priorities that I just wanted to share. And as a board member, I get to be part of the, get to be in the room where it happens. That's a Hamilton reference. But if, again, if there are any other priorities that we have as a city specifically, that we want to talk with the league about, and they fall within those categories, they're probably working on it, and we can work with them. I attended a Southeastern Utah Association of Local Governments meeting. They're the ones that provided us the chocolates. I could have kept them to myself, but I'm sharing them with all of you because they're so good, and nobody needs to eat that much chocolate. The Association of Local Governments, it felt like at our last board meeting, a lot of funding was going the way of Carbon and Emery counties. And there was kind of a moment where I said, gosh, with a couple others, it really feels like there's a real focus on Emery and Carbon right now. And I just wanted you all to know that if you hear that feedback or if you see that yourselves, how that's a really positive thing for us indirectly. I don't know how many of you, think about, where you buy stuff and shopping local, and sometimes local doesn't provide, and then we look at at alternatives, and price can be an alternative for us. Emery County, the health of Emery County and Carbon County can be our health as well. In particular, there's a coal strike force team that's working to rebuild, in particular, Carbon and Emery's economies. And so it might feel like that they're getting a lot of attention right now, and I just wanted to report that that's true, and that feels comfortable, and that you've got representation at the table to make sure that it doesn't ever feel too imbalanced. And then finally, I wanted to say how much fun I had at the tree lighting and at the parade, and it was so great to see so much of the community come together. It was really nice to have David Olson playing the saxophone, and the kids singing, and it was just a really nice series of events, so thanks to the Chamber of Commerce also for organizing them. And in the spirit of that we just had Thanksgiving and gratitude, I also wanted to give gratitude to a man who's not even in the room, Joel, our city manager. Gratitude for whatever work he's off doing. But he really has done a great job in supporting staff and really being responsive to council. And so I was going to share my turkey gratitude for him at this time, but that's it from me.
Okay, probably don't need to have to say much about this, but I think we all had a lot of city meetings, attended November 18th canvass of the last election. Then on November 22nd and December 2nd, we had workshops on the overnight accommodation standards. And December 6th, we had our workshop discussion on the budget and the matrix having to do with capital improvements, which was good. I attended a November 22nd lunch at the Canyonlands Healthcare Center, or the care center, which was very nice, a good company and great food. And the December 3rd city open house for the new parking structure, and I just wanted to commend Chuck and the consultants. I don't know, these consultants seem to really stand out compared to any others I've been in meetings with so far in terms of real, genuine, I think, interest and curiosity, more than I've experienced before, and openness and receptivity about input. So I thought that was a really good meeting. We had EMS Special Service District meetings on November 18th and December 9th, and they are moving ahead with their new building, and we're thinking that ground probably won't break until, or dirt probably won't move until mid-March or early April. And so the folks up there in the building will be moving to other locations. And as part of that process, the Special Service District will be creating a kind of a development team. And so they'll be contacting the city about some involvement on that. They do think there's still a chance, but they probably don't need to come to us about parking and stormwater, soil concerns, but that possibility is still out there. And let's see, I know you guys are sometimes interested in stats, so I'll just tell you, in November, there were calls for EMS versus 107 in 2018. That said, by November 15th of this year, overall call volume surpassed 2018's total call volume. During the 29th and 30th of November, crews responded to 14 calls for service, of which 5 included deaths. And so we're just constantly reminded at EMS, as with unfortunately several other law enforcement and other medical jobs and services in the community, how often one has to deal with death, and in a small community, often it's someone you know. So like so many other entities, we have discussions about what can be done to support employees after going through that. Let's see, we had a Canyons Healthcare Special Service District meeting on December 5th. Both them and EMS have now had public hearings for their budgets for the next year and passed those. I commend both of them for dealing with the unexpected budget cuts that they had happen. And finally, I went to the craft fair at the Mark on December 6th, and that was just great fun. So I hope other people got out and did that. And I briefly stepped into Trail Mix today. I wanted to thank staff for having Corey from the staff attend. And sounds like he'll be getting you guys some questions as follow-up for that. And thanks again for the light parade. That was fun. Yeah.
Thanks, Ronnie.
At a county water board meeting, they are apparently have elected to. They've got a lot of wells and tanks and stuff, much like the city does. They don't have an engineering staff, though, really to speak of. So they have elected to contract with an outfit in Colorado to refit all that infrastructure, wells and tanks, pumps, and on and on and on, not with their own stuff, which they presently own and they presently maintain, but they're going to hire the contracting firm to buy it, install it, operate it, teach them how to use it, maintain it, the whole 9 yards. It's a fancy SCADA system, you know, you can go home and do it from your bedroom phone, you know, before you go to sleep at night if you want that kind of thing. But it's an interesting trade for the county area because they're hoping that even though it could be, they got a decent price, so they're hoping that the synergy will come, and when things do break, they'll get things fixed quickly because these folks actually know how their own stuff works. That was a thought. So it's an interesting way to spend money and something we might talk about later on. They did, Dana Van Horn mentioned at the same meeting, though, Joel's gone, so Carly, that apparently the city is supposed to be the organizer of some sort of committee that includes ourselves, Grand County and San Juan County, to annually discuss sewer rates or some sort of collaboration. You know, they buy stuff from us, blah blah blah. So they have apparently been trying to get hold of Joel without a lot of luck. So Dana said that she'd write me, and I haven't seen that yet, but I told him I would bug you guys and see if you guys can get back to him. That would be great. And I went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting this morning with Karen. It was interesting, and I appreciate that. That's about it for me.
Thanks, Mike.
My 2 board meetings, I had scheduling conflicts, so I didn't go to Housing Authority, nor did I go to the museum meeting. But there was a really good article in last week's Moab Sun News about the updates at the museum. So, and Forrest did a really good job of kind of laying out a timeline as to what will happen when. So, and they covered it very well. So,
Thanks, Tony.
I attended the USU open house meeting at the Hoodoo. Some facts that the USU is striving for, and they have already accomplished. They have raised $8.5 million. That's been secured for constructing the new 20,000 square foot, $10 million building. They still have $1.5 million to raise. They are planning to break ground spring of 2020, and all of us will be invited to attend that when they are closer to making that happen. They are going to move their administrative offices and classrooms from downtown to Aggie Boulevard in the fall of 2021. Some of the new spaces that will be included up at the new campus is a health profession lab, science teaching and nursing labs. USU Extension is going to be up there, which will have a demonstration kitchen, a youth activity center, a conference room, and an open study area. I attended the UDOT Commission meeting in Green River with the mayor. Her comment was so well received that it went onto UDOT social media platforms. And there was a picture of the two of us giving thanks to those guys, especially for the rail study. I'm very impressed with that. The 18th of November, attended the special canvass approval of election results. On Wednesday the 20th, I went to a school board meeting. Friday the 22nd, we had our special meeting on overnight accommodations. On November 27th, I had a meeting with the Solid Waste Special Service District, Evan, just to talk about the letter that he presented to the council and what he would like to do to collaborate with the city. And then on December 2nd, I had 3 meetings. I had the Design Advisory Committee meeting where we were presented with 5 different design themes for the structure of the downtown parking lot. We just discussed cost associated with the project, the feasibility of solar and size restrictions. I attended the airport board meeting. They were all around the same time. At the airport board meeting, a new airport director has been hired. He was previously working in Eagle, Colorado, and he will start in January. They had over 70 applications for the airport director, which is...
Who's the new director? What's his name? Okay.
I'll get it to you.
Maybe we can invite him to a city council meeting to introduce himself.
Yeah, we could do that. He'll be starting around the 1st of January. And the Department of Transportation is requesting proposals for Vernal and for Canyonlands Airport from air carriers interested in providing service to Moab and Vernal with or without subsidy for a new contract period beginning July 1st, 2020. So the EAS contract that we have now is expiring, and so that contract is up and they're looking for bids. We had a workshop number 2 for overnight accommodations that same evening. And then the next day, I attended the downtown public parking structure open house. There's 2 phenomenal comments that came out of that meeting. One was, which will be great for us, was that a local artist in town thought that it would make great sense to have a dedicated wall at the entrance of the parking structure that could be dedicated to artists in our community, which is a great idea, and I don't think we really got that far with our design plans in the committee. And then the other one was with the transportation area that we're looking at off of Center Street that could be potentially attached or linked with the downtown parking, is to have it coincide with the Lions Park Depot and sort of follow along that same theme in town. So it could be, depot number 1 and depot number 2, and that could be a potential to not reinvent the wheel and to save in design costs. So I thought that was a really great idea. And then Friday we had our budget meeting, and then yesterday I hosted the second complete count committee meeting for the U.S. Census, and there's about 17 different groups in the community who are included in the complete count committee, and anybody and everyone is welcome. The more information we get out to folks, the better. And so we set strategy for the next the next 4 months on how we're going to do outreach and spreading the word about the importance and the impacts gained for our community.
Can I ask really quickly?
Yes.
So the Grand County Library submitted a grant, and does
They did it for this complete count committee.
So would you say that everybody in Moab that is working on census stuff is part of that committee?
Yes.
Does that include the free health clinic?
They were invited, they have not showed up to a meeting.
Okay,
So
okay.
if, yes, please tell them, I mean, I can get them on the,
Okay.
if, yeah. So the hospital, there's.
Hospital's part of it.
There's quite a few nonprofits, Multicultural Center, Moab Sanctuary. There's, everyone is welcome. So, and I encourage anybody to get in contact with me if they would like to be a part of that. And then let's see, and then today, I went to the chamber board meeting and I was joined by Mike, which was great. A couple things worth mentioning. Their total new membership for the chamber grew by 34 new businesses this year, and 5 were because of the 4th of July celebration. Investor speed dating for opportunity zones will be held this Friday at the Hoodoo. Do you know what time?
It's a full day event.
Oh, okay. The next luncheon will be next Tuesday, and it's also at the Hoodoo, and it's a tribute luncheon for Dawn Knowles. February 10th is the, what used to be called the Business Summit is now the Canyonlands Business Summit, because San Juan County is also going to be included in that presentation, and that's going to be at the Hoodoo, and the main presenters for that event will be John Curtis and Spencer Cox. And then future considerations for the council is to meet with the chamber about the upcoming 4th of July. And so we need to figure out if we're going to get a band, we're going to pay for a band, who would like to, do we want to continue doing that together? So, and then our workshop session today, that was it.
Thanks, Karen.
I attended a downtown parking structure design advisory committee, and in addition to the elements that have already been presented, another thing that's going on in parallel is development of operational design. Basically, what are the economics going forward after we build it, since that's critical to its success, and hopefully it'll be profitable, as well as provide lots of additional parking. I attended a Moab Dark Skies meeting, excuse me, and continue to work on outreach materials. I attended a Grand County Council meeting at which they voted unanimously for a 100% renewable electricity by 2030 resolution. They also discussed the Book Cliffs Highway, and that the Grand County has the right-of-ways for some critical sections of that potential alignment. So that's probably going to be in the news here shortly. I attended a housing task force meeting, and that was a couple days after the county council meeting, and Jasmine and I especially had a discussion about the relationship of renewable electricity and possible costs and housing affordability. But she's also, as mayor of Castle Valley, looking into them doing a resolution as well for the end of the year. I've been to 3 meetings about the upcoming National Park Service, Arches, and Canyonlands visitor experience and transportation planning, sort of an outgrowth. Well, it's not an outgrowth, but the event that Curtis Wells and I were working on, like, is it still relevant? And it seems like it will be, but just trying to coordinate with the Park Service. And also talking to the parks about, is there a way in their planning process for local interest to be better represented throughout, as opposed to just like we come to the open house with everyone else late in the environmental assessment process. And it seems like there's a lot of interest in that and a pathway for it. So hopefully we'll work more collaboratively over the next few years. And I attended a travel council meeting. TRT through September, after a dismal start, is up 1% year to date relative to last year. And let's see, the Utah Association of Counties now has a committee on tourism, which just formed. Travel Council is working on component of their ad campaign talking about Moab as a venue for meetings and events. And that's it.
Thanks, Kalen. And thanks, council members in particular, for all of those meetings that we've been doing, all the workshops and meetings regarding overnight accommodations that Karen was kind of pointing out. So that it's been a meeting heavy month for sure. Joel,
Well,
we're now in section 7 of administrative reports on our agenda.
I'll be pretty quick tonight. I just wanted to bring up the light parade, and I wanted to thank everyone. I wanted to thank Carmela and Kelly and Kelly Day,
Yay.
and the police and Public Works, and for manning the parade and making it happen. Staff who appeared in it, and to the Chamber of Commerce for putting it on. Also wanted to check with you guys. We're planning to go ahead on strategic planning for January 24th, and you all received that email letting you know that that's where we're working towards, and staff is working on getting the reports so we can get them out to you guys beforehand.
Kaylin, does that work for you? It felt ambiguous, the email that you sent about whether or not that date worked.
I might have to leave early, but probably not.
Okay, so
yeah.
moving forward
Yeah,
with the
that-
24th.
yes.
Okay.
And I think I responded to Carmela that does not work.
That does not work for you?
Oh.
Okay,
We
well,
need to pick a different date.
we'll figure it out
Let's
then.
Google
I didn't
poll
catch that. We'll fix
Doodle
that.
poll that.
Okay, and then that's why I brought it up one last time before I was just making sure. We are getting ready to put out an RFP for our impact fees for all the areas that we don't charge them. And I expect that hopefully to be out by the end of the week. And so we've been working really hard on that this week to get that done up. So that's about done. And then the Assured Workforce Housing Code that we've adopted, we are going to be bringing you at least one change that we think needs to happen as we've been implementing it and working with developers for that policy to become effective. The main area that we feel like we need to make an amendment is there's the 1,000 square foot requirement per living space. And we want to bring you an amendment to that will change that to something along the lines of like 500-600 square foot average living space. And so there would be bigger ones and smaller ones and give us more of a ability to create a different stock for different situations. And so that is a change that we're going to be bringing to you, and watch for that, and we'll be thinking about how maybe you want to see that section amended. So that's it.
Sewer?
I taken care of that already. That's where I was out in the hall. So good to go on that.
Okay. Then we're going to move on to section 8, citizens to be heard. I would like to point out that we also have a public hearing. If you would like to speak to something that is on our agenda tonight, but not the overnight accommodations, then that is the blue form to fill out. If you'd like to be a citizen to be heard, do we have any blue forms? Last chance, if you'd like to be heard. Is your opportunity now. When we get to an agenda item, you won't be heard at that agenda item. This is the only time to be heard as a citizen.
I didn't know I needed to fill out a form, but I would like to participate in citizens to be heard.
Why don't you come on up and then fill it out, and you can have that form.
Yeah.
You got one? Okay.
Good evening. That's a lot of meetings you guys go to. Thank you very much. And I hope you all had a wonderful holiday.
Can we make sure
Yes,
to
put
pull
that
the
mic-
microphone?
Dennis
Sorry,
Silva.
we just need to pull the microphone over. There
Thank
you go.
you.
Uh-huh.
My name's Dennis Silva, and I speak on behalf of the funding for the Humane Society, and specifically the Trap and Release Program. There's more than a decade of research been done on that program and how successful it is, and the impact it has on birds around America. You know, like one estimate is over 1 billion birds die every year in response to cats. I don't know if they teased out just feral cats, but I know that a lot of homeowners, you know, kind of think that it's cute that their cat brings home a bird every once in a while. So we all participate in this slaughter of birds in our area. And the research has clearly shown that it doesn't work. It doesn't work in terms of reducing the population of cats. So we have the potential, by increasing the population of cats, by feeding them in this feral setting, for them to kill birds and to actually contribute to some protozoans from their feces that are actually dangerous to humans. And unless we maybe change our no-kill policy, or at least monitor how that program works, I don't feel comfortable that our taxes money, or whatever, however the funding is that goes to, I mean, all those groups you studied in the workshop, you know, I appreciate all their help for our community. And I appreciate what the Humane Society does in terms of getting all the pets that are abandoned into homes whenever we can. But the feral cat program is not a winner, and it's actually a loser for our birds. So I don't know how to address it, but maybe we could suggest, I mean, I will go to the Humane Society, as you suggested, Tani, and see where that gets me. But I think I'd probably have a pretty high hurdle to leap, because the no-kill policy is something that's very emotional for a lot of people. But as a society, we have a lot of pets. So that's the only thing. Thanks for hearing me out.
Thanks, Dennis. Will you just fill that form out
Yep.
and then hand it to Summer for me, please?
Sure.
Do we have any other citizens that would like to be heard? Okay, we're going to move on then to section 9. And we've got a presentation to give to my friend David Olson. Will you just, here, join me up here, how about? Hello. Oh, okay. Would you mind holding that for me? But so everyone can see. Here. So the city of Moab is pleased to recognize the many, many, many contributions of David Olson, who for 25 years put his skills and vision directly to work for the city to beautify and energize our community. From the creation of the Mill Creek Parkway to the renovation of the facility now known as the Moab Arts and Recreation Center, David has left his mark on our community in countless ways. During his time at the city, David secured millions of dollars in grant funding for facility and infrastructure, and to further the cause of making Moab a bicycle-friendly and walkable city. Evidence of his aesthetic vision is visible right in front of this very building in the design of this section of Center Street. And the ongoing work of the county's Active Transportation and Trails Division, formerly Grand County Trail Mix, of which David was a founder, is a testament to his dream of creating an interconnected network of non-motorized trails leading from downtown to the far reaches of Grand County's backcountry. And I just want to personally say, too, that there was a day that I bicycled my son in a trailer to the farmer's market on a Saturday and bicycled back home. And when I got home, I wrote David a love letter. Dear David, I never gave it to you because that'd be weird. But dear David, thank you so much for the trail system that you've provided so that I could get around town and I can bike my child around town. And I'm so grateful to you for everything that you've done. And in honor of these efforts and so many others, we present this plaque to David Olson tonight and say thank you for your many years of public service. Thank you, David.
want to say a note about the love letters. I get those all the time.
Appreciate you, thank you. Thank you.
It's a continuation of the gratitude of the Thanksgiving holiday. Okay. And we're still in section 9.9.2, Moab Police Department Victim Assistance Unit 6-month update. So Karen DeKruger, our victims advocate, has a presentation for us. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Good evening. Thanks for allowing me to be here. I am Karen DeKruger. I'm the program director for the Victim Assistance Unit for Moab Police Department. This unit started in July, I believe, of 2018, and we're funded by grants that were written to VOCA, which is the Victim of Crime Act, and that's funded by fines and penalties paid by convicted federal offenders. In the last 6 months, last 5.5 months, we have served, this unit alone has served 106 victims of crime, and that's not indicative of increased crime. That's just this unit is new and we're able to help people now more than we were before. Right now we have one full-time person, which is me. The second year I wrote for a half-time position, so hopefully we'll get that going. And then I also will utilize volunteers this year. So we are in compliance with our grant. We're exceeding our goals, but it's a struggle to keep up. I am a statistics person, so I want to rattle off a few of those for you, if you don't mind.
Yep, but go ahead and pull that microphone because it's not even just all of us, but it's a little bit.
It's pretty quiet.
It's pretty quiet.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So the total number of victims served were 106 for this 5.5-month period. Domestic violence for our area was 47 people, and that's males and females. Adult assault, 22. Adult sexual assault, there were 3. Bullying is another thing that's covered with the grant, and there were 2 of those. 8 burglaries of our businesses or residences. We had 5 child sex abuse cases. There were 19 stalking or harassment cases that I helped with. 15 protective orders, 10 stalking injunctions, and 10 violation of protective orders. There were 9 identity theft and fraud cases. And as far as my statistics go for the last 5.5 months, there are 69 females and 37 males that were affected by crime that our unit helped. And that's just the reported ones. You know, we don't know what's going on with the unreported. We also help with suicides, homicides, other fatalities. This last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I spent probably over 16 hours with fatalities at Delicate Arch, I think it was. So I provided transportation and helped arrange funeral items, and so there's a lot that we do in this position. So what I spend my time doing is writing for the grants and doing all the quarterly grant reports, because VOCA grants have a lot of hoops to jump through and rules and regulations. But we provide information on victimization. We advise victims of their legal rights and protections. We provide emotional support, and we help them navigate through the criminal justice process. I spend Tuesdays and Wednesdays in district court and justice court helping victims understand and being able to talk with the judges and the attorneys. We intervene with creditors, landlords, and employers on behalf of victims and help them find shelter. We work very closely with Sea Haven. They're just a gem to work with, and we're lucky to have them in the community. So we assist with protective orders and stalking injunctions. We also have an emergency fund that helps people with lodging and food and clothing expenses if they need it. So I passed around a brochure that we made, and it helps to explain a little bit more of what we do. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you for the brochure, and thank you for the presentation. And it's one of those thankless jobs. But tonight, I think our theme is gratitude. So thank you on behalf of all of us. Thank you.
Wow.
And the community. And now we are at section 10, our public hearing. We have these pink forms, if anyone would like to be heard during this public hearing. And Nora just has a quick timeline to share with us of where we are. We do not have any forms yet. So if while Nora is presenting, anyone in the community would like to comment on our proposed ordinance 2019-30, you just need to fill this out and hand it to Summer. Nora?
Well, I'm bringing it up. Oh, there it is right there, but I need to.
For what it's worth, we don't have any comments, forms currently.
For some reason, this year is taking a long time today. Okay, I'm going to stand away from the microphone for just a minute and then I'll come back. I just want to say, I'm Nora Shepherd, and I'm the planning director. We're having a public hearing tonight on the overnight accommodations development standards in the recreation commercial zone. I'm going to give a short presentation, and my back will be turned to you, which is not that comfortable, but that's the way this room is set up. So I don't mean to turn my back on you, but that's the way it is. So.
Pull that microphone close to you because it's quiet.
Okay.
Thanks, Nora.
Sure. All right. So I know that the type is kind of small, and I apologize for that. I want to just run through why we're doing this, what we've been doing, and then just briefly on the code amendments that are proposed. So over the past year or so, there's been a lot of discussion about the number of hotels and motels that have come into town in a relatively short time frame, and what that impact has been to our to the provision of community services and community commercial types uses, and also housing stock concerns and affordable housing. So there was an effort that was started, and the findings, there is a compelling countervailing public interest to assure that lodging uses are developed in a manner that complements the other needs of the city and its residents. So that was sort of our marching orders. And this is a joint county-city effort, and probably right this very minute, the county's planning commission is holding their public hearing on their overnight accommodation ordinance. And what we're trying to do is make them as consistent as possible. There will be some differences just because of some physical orientation and the way zones versus overlays. But generally, we're on the same track. The county is using overlay zones, whereas the city is looking at changing our existing code requirements for each of the commercial zones. Right now, we're just looking at revisions to the resort commercial zone, but we hope to follow that up as quickly as possible with revisions and development of standards to the C2, C3, and C4 zones. So this is a lot of words, and I won't go through it piece by piece, but this all started when there was a temporary land use regulation adopted by the City Council almost a year ago. And then there were quite a series of scoping meetings, public workshops. The landmark design folks came in and facilitated some of those workshops. There was a review of these 5 alternatives that were drafted. And there were some joint meetings with the city and county and joint meetings with the Planning Commission and City Council. We continued lots of process and work sessions with both the Planning Commission, the City Planning Commission, and the County Planning Commission. I tried to attend as many of the county meetings as I could. We have schedule conflicts, but so there have been lots of meetings about this, many discussions, and the Planning Commission actually already had their public hearing on the 21st of November. So these were our marching orders when we started this process, that the development standards needed to include information or standards on energy efficiency, density and size, aesthetics, landscaping, buffering, mixed use requirements, water, and traffic concerns. So what's being proposed right now is to allow new overnight accommodations, hotels and motels at this point, if development standards can be met. The development standards have, again, been jointly developed by the city and the county planning commissions and councils. This is a public hearing on the current draft of the ordinance, and certainly after the public hearings, we will make appropriate changes and also add some clarification with some diagrams and illustrations to demonstrate some of the concepts that we're talking about. So it's a bit of a balancing act. We heard loud and clear from a lot of our community members that there was some opposition to additional overnight accommodations in Moab. However, and there have been a lot that have popped up very quickly in the last 5 years. And just a reminder that most of the funding for Moab's general fund relies on that tourist economy. So it's not something that we can say, let's just shut it down completely, and because it is an important part of our economy, and I think we need to recognize that. However, there's been a real concern over the number, scale, and appearance of overnight accommodations, and also the resulting impacts like traffic and not having a wide variety of commercial uses on the commercial properties. So development standards as drafted are mostly performance standards, which means we tell you what the end result needs to be, and then the developer can then tell us how they get there. We don't want to design a project for a developer, but we want to work together to achieve certain goals, and that's really how the performance standards, the development standards are intended. Overnight standards must be, the balance is, they have to be stringent enough so that we make a difference and so that we're not getting the same impact over and over again of more and more and more hotels and motels. So we need to make them stringent enough so that the citizens of Moab are more satisfied with the new product that goes up. But we don't want to make them so onerous that it completely stops development. There are certainly citizens who feel that way, but we have to recognize our status as a resort community and honor that. So I think it's prudent for us to at least allow some things. And we tried to balance community needs and developer needs as much as possible. So the standards include energy efficiency standards, water conservation standards, transportation requirements to reduce impacts of new development on our transportation system and traffic, minimum amount of square footage for civic uses or usable open space uses within or adjacent to a new overnight accommodation, require mixed use in either within the accommodation project itself or in a separate structure on the same site. Our real goal is to try to get a wider variety of commercial uses. And a lot of our recent commercial development has been in the form of overnight accommodations at the expense of commercial that may provide services to the community. And particularly the RC is in the North Corridor, and we're also looking for things to happen out there so that everybody who wants to go out to dinner doesn't have to drive into town, or everybody that wants a loaf of bread doesn't have to drive all the way into town. So we're trying to encourage also uses that serve the visitors in the Northern Corridor. We have limitations that are proposed on height and square footage for new overnight accommodations. And we have site configuration criteria that talks about how projects should sit on the site and be broken up. And then building design criteria that include materials and colors and some basic breaking up the mass of the buildings. So that's a summary. And out in the hall, attached to the staff report, are the recommended ordinance provisions. So from
There are copies of that out there,
Yeah,
so
there are.
you can pick them up.
So the Planning Commission already had a public hearing, as I mentioned. The City Council public hearing is tonight. There's a Planning Commission work session that is scheduled for Thursday at their regular meeting after all the other business. The staff needs to do additional work to respond to public comments and respond to inquiries by the City Council and Planning Commission, and just general cleanup of the draft. Planning Commission discussion and possible action will be scheduled for January 9th, which is the Planning Commission's next meeting. And then City Council discussion and possible action, depending on where we are, on January 14th. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. Is there a motion to open our public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Kalen. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Mike. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are open. I've got one public hearing form, but if others would like to speak, please do fill out a form if you would like to speak at this public hearing. Amy Weiser. Is there a time? What's that? How long do they have to speak? Oh, 3 minutes is your suggested time for comment. Hello. Hi, Amy. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I just have a few questions and suggestions on the ordinance when I went through it, so I'll do it as quick as I can. On page 4, under 1731-060, A Energy number 4, it says OA development shall provide annual post-occupancy monitoring. I just have a question on what does post-occupancy monitoring, and I might suggest to just say annual monitoring. So I wasn't sure if anybody knew what the post-occupancy meant. That's
Go
one-
ahead and go through your
Yeah.
list, because I'm
Yes.
sure Nora and
So
everybody's.
that's one of my questions.
Thank
And
you so
then-
much.
Yeah, and then it said under C, transportation, oversized parking as deemed necessary by the developer. I know that we've struggled in town about oversized parking. It might be nice if the city were to actually have a standard or required number of spaces rather than as deemed necessary by the developer. And then it says all projects over 40,000 square feet will be required to, this is number 2, transportation management plan. It was optional in the previous draft, so I'm thinking a word is just missing here, and I'm wondering it must be required to submit or something. And then my question about building height, you can get an additional story if you provide various things. By being able to do another story, are you still subject to the 40,000 square foot maximum? That's another one of my questions. It was just a little unclear. And then the maximum gross square footage of an overnight accommodation shall be 40,000 square feet. Does this include the civic space and the commercial retail space? It's 5% required for each. When it says overnight accommodation project, I just wanted to make sure I understood if that meant the entire project or just the buildings devoted to overnight accommodations. And then I know that Nora's been talking about having examples of site configuration and building design. I just think it'd be great to have those as part of the actual ordinance so that people have that to look at with the ordinance. And that was it.
Any overall comments other than questions?
You know, I mean, I think overall the folks I've talked to are concerned about the 80% energy on site. A little concerned about that. Everybody seems okay about the water reuse. We're a little confused about how all the square footages work. So it's just, in the ordinance, it's a little confusing about, you get 40,000, but then you get, it'd be nice if maybe it were a little more clear.
Thank you for your comments.
All right, thank you.
Liz Ballinger.
Hi, yeah, I'm Liz Ballinger. I'm a Moab citizen, and thanks for wrestling with this difficult issue. It's a hard one. I wasn't able to attend the planning meeting on November 21st. I did submit a letter in advance of that meeting, but I wanted to kind of reiterate here in case the comments didn't get through, and in particular one of them that I'm still not seeing in the ordinance. But up front, I want to say that, you know, I'm still not in favor of having more overnight accommodations at this point. I just feel like I need to reiterate that. We haven't felt the effects of all the things that are in the pipeline. I understand that once things are built out, we're going to probably see a 38% increase. And I think that's kind of scary that we're still going to be allowing this as like a use by right. And especially that we're not considering something that it sounds like the county is, which is a more metered approach to applications and growth of overnight accommodations. So I hope that you'll consider adding something like that, metering into it. And then just one small comment that I wanted to make on the water section. I don't know why there's not something about mandatory use of, you know, low flow toilets and fixtures. That seems like a really easy way to be saving water when we're building new accommodations. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Oh, come on up. You can just hand it to me. Oh, you bet.
Absolutely can.
Yes. Sorry.
My name is Lisa Carter, and yeah, I'd like to reiterate the other person's comments a little bit. I'm still concerned about affordable housing and how does this balance out as we continue to create more overnight accommodations. It seems like the spread gets wider and wider for any kind of workforce or affordable housing. I saw some comments in some of your discussions around metering. That does sound pretty complicated, but some way of saying, you know, this has to be met, otherwise we can't continue to allow this disparity to grow. And then the other comment that I did see something about in some of the comments was putting in, if the developer didn't provide workforce housing, is that something that they're supposed to do? And are they given a formula for that? And there was something in there about a possible land transfer to the city so that the city could provide the housing. And again, this might have been discussions versus what I actually saw. It might have been a committee meetings that I read the notes from. I don't know if the city should be involved in public housing. I mean, I know you're doing a project on the Walnut Lane, and I see that as an idea for a model, but in overall, I'm not sure that the developer shouldn't be providing the housing since they're reaping the benefits mostly from their commercial properties.
Thank you for your comments. Some questions were posed, and I just encourage staff to reach out with answers to some of those questions. Any other comments tonight on the ordinance for overnight accommodations? Okay, I'd like to go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public hearing. However, we will continue to accept written comments, but the Planning Commission is meeting on Thursday to finalize, hopefully, certain recommendations that will then come to our council. So,
I'm sorry, Mayor, can I ask a question?
you can.
So if there's like a piece of information that would help get out to the community that would make sense to just clear up right now, could we allow Joel to just address an issue that just
Yeah,
came
so
up?
Nora, do you want to?
I'll give it a shot, and then you can fill it
Okay.
in. So on the assured workforce housing, all of these hotels, any new overnight accommodations, as well as the ones that are under construction, have to provide a certain percentage affordable workforce housing. So our assured workforce housing ordinance or regulations will continue to apply for any new overnight accommodations. In addition, the current draft includes an incentive for additional square footage if additional affordable, attainable, whatever you want to call it, more affordable housing above and beyond what they're required to do is proposed. And that could be on-site again, or if there's, for example, a piece of property that they want to donate in order for there to be a project, that would be something that we would consider. So it's still a very important piece of this. What else?
I think the water saving.
Water. Water, yeah, low flow. Okay, so right now our plumbing code and building code requires low flow toilets and sinks, and all water conserving fixtures. So the current code already requires that. Certainly some of our hotels were built before our current code, so they don't follow that, but any new commercial building has to use water conserving appliances and fixtures.
So Nora, as a shortcut, I know on the city's water board that I sit on, we've already had a draft material that just suggests the use of the term water sense. That turns out to be an EPA term.
Water sense?
Yeah, water, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
And it encompasses just exactly what we're talking about here in easy reference.
Okay.
Thank you for your
Is there
comment.
another one that you were thinking of I could address real quick?
No, I think that was it.
Thanks for those follow-up comments. I would entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Kaylin. Tawny, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now we are in section 11, old business. 11.1, resolution 51-2019, adopting a capital projects prioritization matrix for the city of Moab. We had a workshop on this. When was that?
Friday.
On Friday last week. So is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Ronnie. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Karen. Discussion.
I just wanted to thank all the staff who worked on this. I know the committee had a number of meetings, test the matrix, and provide us documents for last week's meeting. And I would just encourage any residents who are interested to maybe look for the YouTube video on that, just because it was kind of pretty fascinating how you can use this measurement tool to assess the need for individual projects, the impact, the financial viability, and it sounds like it will be invaluable to help us rank projects, so we're really making the best choices about what to invest in when, especially with our debt management policy. So at any rate, I'm excited to start using it, and I think it's, as my understanding, this just adopts it so we can start running all of our capital projects, improvement projects through the matrix so we can start to rank them.
Any other comments or discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 11.2, discussion and approval of Walnut Lane RFP. We had a workshop before, so I don't know how much more discussion we need to have, but I would entertain a motion or any comments that you would like to have prior to motion.
I was just going to comment that I understand that we don't have to officially approve the RFP, that staff had requested approval before it was published, so I'm happy to make a motion to approve it.
Thank you. Ronnie, is there a
I'll
second?
second.
Thanks, Karen. I'll take Karen on that one. Discussion? Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion
you.
passes 5-0. And we're on to section 12, new business on our agenda. 12.1, community contributions. We spoke earlier in a workshop earlier regarding the matrix. And so, council, let's just continue the conversation where we left off.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could ask staff what we spent on event sponsorships last year. It'll just help me budget a little for this year.
I looked that up. Ronnie, and it was, I believe, $11,500.
Okay, thank you.
I have one question for you guys. The Humane Society and their various programs has come up. If we give them this money, is it like go into their general fund, they can do whatever, or can we say that the money that we're about to grant to them, that a certain fraction of it, or we could say that the money can't be used for a specific program, for example, the Feral Cat program?
The grant that they applied for is specific to that program.
Oh.
It's for two different programs?
Yeah, it's for their animal adoption program, and also funding for the feral cat program.
So the two are inextricably tied together then?
No, I wouldn't say so. The council can decide, to require them to allocate the funding to whichever of those two programs they applied for that you want.
Yeah, forgive, so I may have this wrong, you guys correct me if I remember, what I've heard tonight from various council members and from citizens to be heard is that the feral cat no-kill program may not be a good idea, and or at least may not be something that we wish to fund, but the rest of the programs that the Humane Society indulges in are fine. Can we somehow structure this so we could split it out that way, or?
Can I double check too? I'm just looking at the matrix, and it seems like I know just from the community, from having pets or knowing people with pets, that one of their other programs is low-cost spay and neuter, and I think that's in the matrix, so that's part of it too, right?
That's what it says.
Not just feral.
I think it's not just feral. It was.
And you guys might have that. Yeah, it might be easier to pull the longer document than just the matrix.
So Ronnie and I just wanted to point out that we've tripled our rates for special events coming this next year. So even though it was 11.5 this last year, I think we're going to see an increase in request.
And I want to clarify on that too. While we did 11.5, we also became sponsors of a couple events, including the light parade with the chamber and the homecoming parade with the high school. As sponsors, then the sponsorship wasn't needed because it was essentially our event, and so those fees weren't tacked on, and we didn't have to sponsor them. So that was another way we donated by participation rather than actual financial donation on top of that 11,500.
Okay.
Yeah, and the value of those actually would have been $10,000
Each.
in fee waivers,
Yeah.
so $20,000 that we didn't have to allocate.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, should I think of that 10,000 as real cost though, because that was staff time and it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be all of our law enforcement and public works who are closing the road and manning the parade so they can function down Main Street and on our roads.
So Ronnie, to answer your question, when it comes to Humane Society, that Humane Society question, they lump it into two, which is one, sterilization and adoption. So that's one program, and two, the feral cat. I would say just that umbrella program. So in some ways it's three, I can understand, because it's sterilization, but also that's in hand with the adoption program.
I guess I'm then curious if the council is comfortable making that grant, but asking that it be spent on the low-cost spay and neuter and the adoption part.
I prefer to adjust it so it's 1,000 to the Humane Society and the balance of 2,500 to Youth Garden Project. To Youth Garden Project to support the children in the community via their summer camp program.
What's the pleasure of the council? Someone want to make a motion, or you want to talk about it a little bit more?
I move to approve the Community Contributions Ad Hoc Committee's recommendations for 2019 grants with the modification of making the Humane Society of Moab suggested funding level column read 1,000 and Youth Garden Project suggested funding be 2,500.
Thank you, Kaylin. Is there a second? Okay, that motion fails for a lack of second. Would someone like to make an alternative motion?
Could I ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
So I didn't get a chance to ask this, but so the KZMU radio program, I know through the arts, what the heck is it called? The
Moab
Moab
Arts
Arts
Council?
Council, through the 1% art donation from the city, we also gave KZMU funds this last year. I mean, is it because this is a very specific program that we don't have the money that was given to KZMU? I mean, does it not get lumped in? I'm just...
This request was specifically for funding for their public affairs program, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know what the application was for the Arts Council, but it was probably arts related somehow, and I'm not sure
It was another,
what way it would be.
I think it was the theater, the radio theater program, or there was, something else involved with that too.
This, as I said, this application is specifically for their public affairs program, and certainly it's at the council's will.
I'd like to make a motion to table this.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that item is tabled. Sorry, that was Karen that made the first, and Ronnie, or Kaylin that made the second. Sorry. Okay, moving right along. It seems like we got a little work to do on remembering names too. For what it's worth, that's my nickname for Kaylin. Okay.
Should we share yours?
No.
Okay, moving on. 12.2. Approval of an interlocal agreement for the joint repayment of a loan from the Utah Permanent Community Impact Fund Board to the City of Moab for construction of infrastructure between U.S. Highway 191 and the future USU Moab campus development site by and between Moab City, Utah and Grand County, Utah. Joel?
So this is, we were doing some housekeeping and we were going through records and we come across this agreement that we had entered into with the county, but we had never actually passed and entered into it. The county had adopted it back in November 2017 and we did never approve it on an agenda and authorize the mayor to execute it. So this is just housekeeping.
But we already did the work.
The work is done, the road is built, we just need to get paid.
I move to approve the interlocal agreement for the joint repayment of a loan from the Utah Permanent Community Impact Fund Board to the City of Moab for construction of infrastructure, which has already been done, in the future of USU Moab campus development site.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there discussion?
Thank you for housekeeping. I hope the dust bunnies you found were fun.
There'll be more.
Who was the second? Sorry. I heard multiple seconds.
Tawny?
Tawny? Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 12.3, back in angle parking recommendations. Chuck. Chuck has a presentation for us all before we get into the deliberation.
Hello. When I first came to Moab, I realized that there were two issues that were really in our transportation system that stood out to me. And one was the huge amount of bicycles in this town and the town's commitment to bicycles, and the other was parking. We have made progress on parking, I think, and we're continuing to make progress on bicycle safety. So when the opportunity came, when we did the 100 West Sewer project to implement some back-end angle parking, we came to council, and council agreed, let's try that. So we did try that. That became effective in May of 2019. Since then, a few of the local business owners have asked us to revisit that, said that they feel that it's a problem, that people are having a hard time adjusting to that or can't adjust to it. So we did some more research into it. We took bicycle counts, we did observation. We've spent hours out there watching people. Not as many hours as the business owners right there, I know that, but we've done that on weekdays and on weekends. We have reviewed the police accident record since May of 2019, and we found no accidents attributable to the back-end parking. The only accident we found was actually due to parallel parking in the vicinity. I've talked to the police chief to see what they thought about the program. He couldn't be here tonight because of his health, but he said that they support the program and would recommend that we continue it and move forward with other locations throughout town. So our recommendation is that we maintain the back-end angle parking at the 100 South location, and that we also, because council has previously at other times said...
You're not.
Well, I'm not, now I am, thanks.
Thank you.
That we also consider other locations in town. So what I have included for you was a memorandum discussing back-end angle parking, the advantages to it in terms of the safety elements. Primarily that when you leave the parking space, you have a frontal view of what's going on in the traffic lane. That could be bicycles moving by, it could be other cars moving by. It's exiting that parking space is the safety element of it, as well as the motions of when you go forward in parking, when you back up, you're backing out into traffic, except you can't see out into traffic except over your shoulder. Another benefit of the back and angle parking is when you exit the car door is facing walking to the curb, as opposed to when you're in forward in angle parking, you exit the car and you move back towards traffic. If you're in a pickup truck or in a sedan and you want to put your groceries or office supplies in the back of your vehicle with the back and angle parking, you're backed up to the curb. So you're actually loading from the safe side of the street as opposed to walking around into the traffic side and loading into the vehicle out in the traffic lane. So those are some advantages to why it's a safer scenario, we feel. And nationwide, to be perfectly honest with you, it's being implemented in many, many more communities. There have been a few communities that have looked at it and said, no, we don't want to do it. I mean, truthfully, I think the questions that we've tried to review and I think council should consider is, you know, the amount of bicycles that we have in this community. That's a bicycle ridership. It's pretty impressive. We've included some counts in this memorandum. Some vehicle counts. So our recommendation for new locations, if councils were to continue the program, would be to go to 100 North at the food truck park. Here's an exhibit right there. Currently, on the south side of the street, it's parallel parking, and on the north side of the street, it's angle-in parking. We think that there's sufficient room to put back-in angle parking on both sides of the street, and there's sufficient bicycle traffic. Even though it's not on our bike route plan 100 North, there seems to be quite a bit of bicycle traffic that comes down through that area. And these aren't necessarily prioritized. These are 5 that we looked at as staff and looked at the things that I've talked about earlier. Second would be 100 North at Moonflower Cooperative. The police chief endorses, he and I have talked about this one at length, and they think this would be an important one, as you know. Moonflower doesn't have dedicated on-site parking, and right now it's a busy place and there's a lot of bicycle traffic that comes by. And you know, these same issues, if you pull in here, when you're pulling out, you can't see what's coming down the street behind you in the same direction of travel, and your field of vision is blocked if there's a larger vehicle behind you to the right. And that's not because you're always looking to the right the way you come out of there. So we think that that's a good location.
Is there a reason why the other side of the road didn't get the angled parking instead of parallel?
Yeah, there's too many driveway cuts over there, and that was the main reason. You know, you have driveway cuts here and here and here and here, and we're a little concerned that this isn't wide enough to handle angled parking, whether it's back in or whether it's forward in on both sides. It still allow vehicular travel and cars, and as you probably have everybody's seen, the delivery trucks, because there's no parking area, park in the middle.
Yeah.
There just is, we just feel like there's not enough room, because the angle parking sticks further out and towards the center of the street. So we save 5 to 6 feet by keeping the parallel parking on one side. And we went to the north side there because the post office has some parking, but Moonflower doesn't have any, so pretty much all of that north side parking is going into Moonflower or other businesses there, and we're trying to keep them from crossing the street without going down to the crosswalk. The next recommendation we had was 100 South between 100 East and Main Street. And this really ties into, if you'll recall, we have design plans for 100 South. We just weren't able to fund it this year. And we've got a lot of the green infrastructure designed into those first 3 blocks for those plans that we did last year. So ultimately, 100 South will have bike lanes on the east side of Baden Street. So much the same way cars now use 100 South to come into the 100 West curve as one of our local bypasses, so to speak. We think that the bicycles will continue to grow that traffic with commuters down there. So this is the Best Western Inn here, down here. Here's Main Street. So what we're saying is bicycle lanes on the south side with back-end angle parking on this side. And on the other side, we'd have parallel parking because there's not room, as I just discussed about over at 100 North, for both parking with the other park strip changes we're proposing here with the retention basins and bike lanes and such.
And this goes up to the new mountain bike park, correct? Right?
This is 100 South at up past Bark Park.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then 100 North at the Mark, restriping the forward parking into angled parking, same consideration. Right now, the bike lane goes out here and then ends, so the bicyclists have to do something, and they can go around here and continue down 100 North, or they can turn and go down this way. We think that's a good candidate. We have the streets wide enough to accommodate angle parking on both sides. We don't have the delivery truck issue that we have down at Moonflower.
What, can you scroll back up?
Yeah.
Because there was why not extend it up the road there as well?
Well, so we get into, my belief is these are residential houses. You know, I don't know that with 100% certainty.
I meant on the other side.
I'm sorry, up here?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
In front of the school.
Oh, that could go, yeah.
I know that they have it blocked off for maybe like bus drop-off or pickup, but I don't know if that's something they could do on 200 East. Just knowing that the Mark, whenever the Mark has a big event, all the parking is taken. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, if we move forward with this, we'll definitely look at that.
What about 100 East? It runs from the travel council to the west side of the courthouse.
Yeah, 100 East and north and south.
We didn't look at that one. We were trying to come back at you with a handful.
Okay.
And that one didn't make the cut, but we certainly could, though, if that's what you like us to look at. We're more than happy to do that.
So Chuck, let me ask you, do you have any statistics showing that presently that accidents happen to bicyclists when cars do back out? In other words, because I come down this road all the time, and I agree it's a hazard, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that if the accident rate is low enough on the conventional parking, the way you've got it right now, then it's kind of a problem that doesn't really exist. On the other hand, if you're seeing, you know, frequent or, let's put it this way, unacceptably frequent accidents to bicyclists because cars are backing out and they can't see them, then certainly there would be a reason to consider this experiment. So how often, any data to show you do or do not have bike accidents?
So the best information we have right now is not from Moab. It's City of Tucson. They did over 4 years, what they reported out is that bicycle traffic accidents, vehicle accidents were reduced significantly. That's why, and we've gone through the police reports in the vicinity of 100, the curve, you know, where we're talking about where we've implemented it. But we only went back to the time frame from when we started back in angle parking, because we thought that was the fair comparison to see if things were being worse, as some people were concerned that it was worse. We wanted to first find that out. So we've had to rely a lot on talking to the police department, and it's hard to get some of the statistics. So direct answer is, I do not have a bicycle vehicle accident log for the entire city, to be honest with you. But we've looked at what is available, and it seems to be an improvement from a safety standpoint. I understand that there is a learning curve that people have to go through.
Perpetual learning curve, because there's a lot of out-of-state people, out-of-town people who come in who'll be driving up First North and so on. So,
yeah, and honestly, we've had people, when we implement it, pull up and go, oh, we see what you're doing. We do this in Salt Lake. They do it all over Salt Lake. They do it all over Phoenix. They do it all over Denver. They do it all around the United States. Not everywhere. I'm not trying to convince you to do it. I'm just sharing information with what we found. And
I can do this so much easier. I cannot parallel park to save my soul. I can do that, though.
Yeah.
Is that the last example?
The last
Location.
example was 300 South.
Yeah, let's just look at that before
Near the advertiser. We just think that it's the same location. It's got a nice pavement width there. 300 South is scheduled under the bike route plan to become bike lanes someday. It gets a lot of traffic. We thought that was a good location to do so as well. And when people are loading their vehicles coming out of the advertiser, they wouldn't have to load them from the street side. They could load them from the...
And again, why not just extend that parking up and down?
Probably could. Absolutely.
Chuck, can we look at 100 again?
The first one?
Yes.
Which part of it?
Sorry. In front of Zach's and, what is that, 100?
Oh.
100 South.
South.
Oh,
West.
Actually, if you just scroll all the way, it's one of the first images, I think.
Plus the last image that has
Keep
the bike
going.
study.
Keep going. That one?
Yeah, so here's Zach's, here's the Desert West is...
Can you zoom out, or is that the
Well,
actual
this is
picture?
a static picture. I could pull in Google Earth if you like, and we could look at it, but it doesn't have the new...
It's probably not updated.
It's not, it doesn't have the new picture on it.
So have you heard from Zach's?
Yes.
And what was their sentiment?
They'd be happy if it would go back to the way it was.
Okay, I'm just throwing this out there and just curious what the council thinks. We've had quite a bit of controversy about just this section right here. And I think it is effective. Other places, I think the co-op would be great. I don't know if you've talked to if any staff has broached this with the co-op or any of the places that this would be implemented.
We wanted to come to you. Actually, the truth of the matter is angle parking, whether it's forward parking or back in angle parking, resides with council. Doesn't reside with me. It's in our code. Council decides about angle parking.
No, I get that. I'm just curious if that was discussed with any of the businesses that this would affect. Before coming to us, yes.
At the new ones, no, because we
wanted to see if it would go
if there was any
forward
interest
first.
in it from council.
I think it's very applicable. Other places, I I don't like the 100 South one on the north, oh my gosh, what's
The north side of the
north
road.
side, that
Actually,
side.
it's, Ronnie is right. The better picture is the bike count picture at the very bottom of your
the end of
memo.
your-
Yeah. It's just
127 in the packet.
And out zoomed.
I mean, because to use bikes as an example, especially on that road, most cyclists are using the bike path, and you know, unless that changes in the future, I mean, your
bike count picture.
Oh, that's the PDF. I got you. I don't think I have that one.
I just want to add to what you're saying, Karen. I mean, we had business owners say to us, like, this might be a great idea, but this is not a great location. And I've talked to a lot of cyclists, and I brought it up at Trail Mix today. And I don't know any cyclists who go down that block. You're using the parkway, or, and granted, we may have tourists who don't know any better, but I can't really, I take full responsibility for agreeing to try this, but after hearing feedback from business owners, I'm opposed to trying it somewhere else unless we do talk to the people it's going to impact. Personally, as someone who grew up backing up, I don't really care if I back in or back out. But here, I have a hard time making the bicycle argument just because of this particular block and the way it is. And I would kind of like to table because I'd like to get more information. Like, we looked at the bicycle traffic here, but it wasn't a high volume time of year, so I'm having trouble accepting that as demonstrative. But also, I mean, I've had cyclists tell me, well, if you want to do another pilot, do it somewhere else where we actually use the road. But it would really help me, especially given how this block went, if we did actually had a block where the business owners there said, we'd love to try this here. I think that'd be a much better community buy-in spot to try it. But I am concerned about our budget. I know we're talking about striping and signage, but there is an education component, and we're going to be trying to cut our budget. So I would like to have a little more time to know what the impact is. I'm trying to think if I have anything else written down here.
Let's just be real specific with direction to staff, if that is something that you want for the council to consider. So would that look like outreach to businesses where the new angled parking is proposed?
Or, I mean, personally, if it was up to me, I would take it out here, and if people like it, choose a different pilot place where there is buy-in, where there is heavier bicycle use, and perhaps any of those other places would qualify. The other side of 100 South, again, because a lot of people are on the parkway, I don't know how many people are going to be traveling east across that intersection, but it's true, people may come off the parkway at 100 East and come west, but I don't know that that's a strong contender to start with. But
I mean, I don't know how you feel about keeping it on that one side, going back. I mean, it seems like there is some hodgepodge examples in the future prototypes. I do think it's very applicable and would be, there's great usage for this sort of parking. I don't feel really comfortable that's, because 100 South gets used so much coming off of Main Street, going down to 100 to hit all the businesses down there. And there is such a cluster off of Main when we're in high volume traffic. But the Moonflower, I mean, if we could talk to them, I personally have almost hit cyclists, and I have been very close to being hit. So, I mean, that is the most precarious spot ever. And I mean, if it is for cyclists, then let's put it where cyclists are using it. I just don't see them going 100 South.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would feel okay about going back to back out here, but I think better communication in advance is important, but I also feel like it's also up to the professionals to make a recommendation about like what has worked in a bigger sense rather than just like what any individuals who may or may not be comfortable with change think. And I also think that the area around Moonflower and the post office it would really benefit, because I've been almost been hit on a bicycle. It's super uncomfortable for me backing out in a car. I feel like there's a lot of potential there. And so I would give stronger support for staff to pursuing it there. And I feel like there needs to be communication, but ultimately it is our response. The streets are the cities, and they have the option of locating someplace with on-site parking, and the on-street parking is our responsibility.
Is there a compromise where we could eliminate the far to right parking spots? The congestion happens when somebody's sitting in the turn lane on Main Street, looking to go left onto 100 South, and they're waiting and they're waiting, and traffic is what it is. The light turns red, and then at that point you can turn left. From what I've heard, the tension moment is turning left, and then somebody is backing in, so you kind of stop, and you're kind of, and maybe there's even a second car that's doing the same thing because there's not a left-hand turn light. And if there was enough distance between the intersection and like where two cars would be, which would probably be the elimination of two parking spots, then we wouldn't have to change the orientation. And another thing, I think it was just as dangerous with the angle parking going the other way for that exact reason. The people are screaming left on a red light, and they're held up because somebody's either backing out or they're backing in. So it's the same to a car coming off of Main Street. It's the same like tension wait period.
Yeah, if your car turning left off Main, the backup direction's irrelevant. It's still backup direction.
And it sounds like that's why, that as I tease it out, that's the most, that's the tension point that people are talking about with the dangers of angled parking at that particular area. I mean, alternatively, we could also go to parallel parking, because that could, I mean, that's,
How many spots do you lose when you do
That's
that?
the downfall. Parallel parking is probably the safest parking form actually here because it's so close to the curb. You would be able to have cars angling in and parking, and cars would be able to go around them, and they wouldn't be blocking traffic. But the problem with parallel parking is you're going to get 6 spots instead of 11.
is that far right one a handicap parking spot? It is.
Yes.
Well, Chuck, let me submit this. I thought Ronnie had a good point about budgets and so forth. We got to whack money, as we all know. And what I'm hearing is it's a mixed bag. I'm not hearing convincing evidence that it's a matter of life and death. I grant you that it probably does reduce the probability of it, and in the long run, that's a great thing. I would like to, and I hear what Emily is saying, and the problem with where right around Zach's and so forth, with people going around the corner and finding people blocking their road and so forth. So I guess what I'm going to suggest is maybe we can defer this at least until budget time and decide how much, if we want to spring $50,000 or whatever it costs to do the restriping and use that money somewhere else. And by that time, we'll have more data. I mean, spring will be upon us. We'll have a new crop of bicyclists here, and I don't know.
And that's entirely your guys' decision. This is striping, this is road work that we would do in-house. We have all the equipment to do this, so this isn't something we do have to contract out or anything like that. This is, we have the equipment, we have the manpower, we have the paint, like we can. I don't want you to think this is a labor issue. We can provide whatever
And
service
in front of the food park, if we had this back-end parking or front-end park, I mean, I am a full advocate for that because that is very wasteful space as it is. So if we could get on that and, you know.
And it seems like in front of the mark, we are the business owners, so to speak, so.
Yep.
So yes,
And also on 100 East, that is the home of the, I'm blanking on the name of the Trails Group and the community.
Trail mix?
Well, not trail mix, but the county trail, professional trail makers. what are they called?
We're
County
Tyson
Professional
and-
Trail Makers?
Tyson and,
Well, County Community and Economic Development, and
Trail Development Group.
They're called Trail Mix.
Okay, yeah, so they're housed on 125 East.
No,
Maybe that would be a
Trail
good
Advisory.
The
partner.
Active Transportation and Trails Division?
Yes.
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 You cheater.
Right, so I mean, maybe they and Zachariah would be willing to be partners as well in this piloting.
So the only additional thing that I would add here is that when I bike into town, if I want to hit a business that's on the east side of Main Street, I'll take the bike path and then I shoot out at 100 East. And I will say that the intersection of 100 East and Center is very difficult on a bicycle. You stop and then you can't see past parked cars.
And this has been mentioned before, and
There's
so is
not
100 East and 100
bulb outs.
North.
There's like a hump you gotta hump over.
It's bad in a car.
It's
If
bad
you're
in a
car,
car.
you can't see it. In a bike, it's
But
even
at least you
worse.
have like an acceleration. In a car, in a bike, it's worse. So that intersection in particular, plus the fact that we don't really delineate bike lanes, but if you think about it, if you want to hit a business on the east side of Main Street, you're going to bike down 100 and then approach. And so I like that we're looking at our approach roads, but 100 East would be another one where I would just say we might as well, if we're going to move forward, hit 100 East, north and south of Center as well to change. So then we're fully consistent with our parking.
Yeah.
So I would add that when it's the right time to do it. And I don't know if it's now or not.
So there's a recommended motion, but I'm not, but it seems like it refers to this technical memo that has a number of suggestions. So it seems like it may require some fleshing out, or is it that like we support this generally
or you're in the wilderness, you gotta go out there and come up with one all on your own. What do you guys want to do?
Yeah. We didn't really know how this would shake out.
Exactly.
So we put a motion on there because we had been asked to look at this existing condition. We'd also been asked to look at other locations.
Yeah.
That's why we gave you the two with that motion, but
Well,
I would echo what you say.
Let's start with the pleasure of the council for, in particular, the 100 South parking. It seems like there are a few different options that have been put out there. Table it. Remove a couple of parking spots closest to Main Street so that you're avoiding that congestion. Turning it back the way that it was. Or turning it into parallel parking. So those are at least 4 options that I heard discussed. Tabling's the easiest.
When did we put this into place, Chuck? I can't remember.
It's the beginning of this year.
Right.
It has
Yeah.
not been that long.
It's been 6 months.
I'll make a motion to table.
I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
no.
No.
So the motion does pass to table, and just note that Karen and Ronnie, or Kaylin are no. Okay. And we'll move right along, because that's what you do after a table. Thanks, Chuck. Thank you so much. Where are we? What's today?
12-4, man. 12-4.
Nora? Corey? 12-4. Resolution 63, 2019, approving the Mick Minor subdivision of property located at 600 Mill Creek Drive, Moab, Utah 84532. Thank you for putting together the packet information. You wanted to present a brief?
A brief presentation or not?
Oh, I thought there was just a picture amending, like a clearer picture than what was in the packet.
Yeah. You get there.
Welcome, Corey.
Thanks. Yeah, be nice
Be on
to
the
him.
table.
It's only 8:45.
Yeah.
We got time, don't we?
14 minutes, according to Tawny.
What? Tawny's rule is 10 p.m., not 9 p.m. And I
changed
think,
it.
well, you can't change
Yes, I
it.
can.
It changes with the solstice.
It does. Oh, my
It's
gosh.
almost a full moon.
The daylight
Did you
savings.
ever
issue.
learn a woman can change her mind? Oh, my word.
I don't know. I guess I got to change my mind about that.
Perfect. We got one over here. All righty, so to begin with item 12.4 is the Mick Minor subdivision, resolution 63, 2019. All righty. Okay, this is located at 600 Mill Creek Drive, directly west of Rotary Park. Applicants Dan Mick and Richard Mick are wanting to subdivide the 3.44 acre parcel into 2 lots. Lot 1 becoming a 3.08 acre lot and creating Lot 2 with 0.36 acres. This proposed parcel, or the proposed parcels, are in the R2 single household and 2 household residential zone. There's a shared driveway access and utility easement. The easement runs down and across Lot 1 and up the portion of shared driveway.
Uh-oh. I blew it. I was just trying to show where.
Yeah.
So that's right here, right?
Correct. So to the darker outlined parcel on the left side, you'll see a narrow line coming down that west side and then runs across Lot 1. That's part of the access and utility. And then onto the right side of the parcel where Lot 2 joins into that easement, that's the shared driveway access. Seeing that or no?
Yeah, I guess that was a question that I actually had was, so there's no road? That Lot 2 does not have access other than an easement? It's not a flag lot?
It is a flag lot.
Oh, it does have
But
a
it's
flagpole?
Shared easement. I mean, each property owner wants to be able to use that as an access point.
Right, but I thought our code required that the flag would be owned by the flag lot and then they could give the easement to somebody else. I thought you had to have a flagpole. Somewhere back in your day.
I believe the code reads that it serves as access to the subject lot.
The flagpole does.
Right, which it does.
Correct. So
But the flagpole doesn't belong to the Lot 2?
it does.
Oh, it does?
Yeah, so coming down from the road there on Mill Creek, it's the section most covered by the driveway, and then there's a crossover that I think might be the confusion there. So there is a flagpole.
So it's.
I totally just can't see it. Is there any way to color
You
it?
can go up into a Vanna White.
Yeah.
This?
I'll jump
What
up there.
about you, Vanna?
Plus he's tall, so that helps.
So Lot 2 is Lot 1. This is the driveway and driveway easement. This is Lot 2.
Oh, okay.
So it does
Okay,
connect in there.
got it. Thanks.
So if the owner of Lot 2 ever wanted to sell that, there would still be a driveway and access?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I move to approve the Mick Minor subdivision, subject to the following condition. All engineering comments shall be addressed to the satisfaction of the city engineer prior to review by city council.
Thank you, Ronnie.
I'll second.
Thank you, Karen. Any further discussion?
I move to strike the condition because it doesn't make sense. This is the only time that we review the subdivision plats, so.
Is the engineer done? Were those words prior to review by city council just not supposed to be there, or? I guess I need to know.
He actually has finished his review on this one, so you can strike that.
Oh, okay.
So-
I can restate the motion. Yeah.
We could do that, or it could be a substitute that you support. Why don't you, are you comfortable with her restating the motion, Karen, since you seconded? Okay.
Okay. I move to approve the Mick Minor subdivision, period.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Ronnie. Thank you, Karen. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. And on to 12.5, Resolution 64-2019, approving the Bailey minor subdivision of property located at 62 South, 200 East, Moab, Utah 84532.
Perfect. And point of clarification, at the event of a motion, this is the same situation where, and the representation is in the slide as well.
Let's see the slide.
For the adjusted motion.
Oh.
So that's the adjusted motion without the condition.
Okay.
And
Will you
here.
go back to the slide?
Certainly. So.
I think we might be, is there a motion?
I just wanted to ask one quick thing. I was having trouble on my computer seeing where Lot 1 was versus Lot 2. So I'm going to take a minute and look here because.
The darker outline is not quite as clear, but Lot 2 is this back section of the flag. Lot 1, the gradient. So that parcel line is right here, which runs down the shared driveway, and that driveway will extend to the back end.
Okay, thanks. That was, okay.
And that flag is how wide? 22? Flagpole?
I believe it is 22 or 24.
The driveway flag is 20 feet, and there's a 10-foot, an extra 10-foot easement for the benefit of property owner 1. And there is a driveway on the north side of property 1 also.
So it also has a shared drive. It's a similar situation. Either Lot 1 or 2 can use that shared drive.
I'll move to approve the Bailey minor subdivision.
I second.
Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks, Karen. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. 12.6, Resolution 66, 2019, a resolution approving a lot consolidation for lots 22 and 24, Mulberry Grove, located at 633 and 641 Peacock Lane.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm recusing myself.
Okay.
Okay.
Just want to say why? Do you need a why?
He doesn't have to.
No.
No, he doesn't have to.
I thought you were about to. Okay.
Because he doesn't.
Sorry.
Okay. So this is something that we haven't, at least since I've been here, we haven't done. But it's not something that comes up an awful lot, but it does come up where you have a property owner that owns 2 adjacent lots and they want to combine them, lot combination. Both the state law and our local code allow that to occur without a public hearing, but it has to be approved by the legislative body. And our local ordinance, if the 2 parcels are owned by the same party, so the little plat with the 2 parcels that combines them, if that's owned by one person, then we don't need a public hearing from a local ordinance perspective either. So this is 2 lots in Mulberry Grove, and as you all are fully aware, Mulberry Grove had a number of twin home lots, and several of them have been built out, and there are some that are still yet unbuilt, and there are also just plain old single-family lots. With this particular one, we ran into some issues with roof overhangs hanging over one lot onto another with some maintenance issues. The fire folks and the building department are uncomfortable having one person's eaves over the property line of somebody else's house and maintenance and et cetera, et cetera. So we looked at trying to figure out options for this and decided that the current owner, PSX3, they don't want necessarily to sell off. They don't want to sell off the second home as a separate home. So what they would like to do is a single-family residence with basically an ADU and without a property line in between. And then that solves our issue with the property ownership and maintenance. So that's what this does. It's very simple. It just takes the 2 lots and makes them into one.
So Mulberry Grove has really specific HOAs.
Yeah.
They do.
And are they good with this too?
As far as I know, they are. Courtney Kaiser, who's the applicant, might be able to address that because she has to go through them to get all of her approvals. It's not something that we enforce. So,
It would be irrelevant to a subdivision or a.
It would be.
I mean, if they forbid it to happen, then that's, if they will need to go through the homeowners association to have their plans approved, which I believe they have.
And if the homeowners association had issue with their plans based off of what they're proposing, that again would not come anywhere
Right.
through us. So.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution number 66-2019 approving a lot consolidation for lots 22 and 24 Mulberry Lane.
And that includes a correction, if you could, to the title of the resolution as in your packet says Lot 22 and 25. So that should be Lot 22 and 24 as stated in the motion and on the screen.
What she said. Can I do that?
In Mulberry Grove.
In Mulberry Grove.
A second.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Tawny. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion passes 4-0 with Kalen recused. Thanks, Carly. He went, I think
It's
he
a
went over
race.
that way. All right, almost done here. Item 12.7, proposed 2020 City Council meeting schedule. Is there a motion?
Do you want a motion?
Wait.
Oh,
Actually,
Kalen, sorry, Kalen's.
You're just,
There you are. Sorry, we're
Holiday
on
schedule.
12.7, and we are
Meeting
at the
schedule.
city council meeting
Oh.
schedule.
Sorry.
Mayor, I do want to point out that there is an asterisk by the September 1st, and that one was switched. Most of you usually attend Utah League of Cities and Towns, so rather than publishing later in the year that we're moving that one, I thought it might be helpful to just
Make it.
make it happen.
That's some fine work.
Fine work. Is there a motion?
So I'm sorry, are we moving it to when are we moving it to?
The first.
Oh, so that's
Yeah,
the
that's the
correct date.
corrected
Oh,
date.
gotcha. Yes, I make a motion to adopt the regular meeting schedule 2020.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, Tawny. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 12.8, proposed 2020 Moab City holiday schedule. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the holiday schedule 2020 for the Moab City.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Tawny. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. 13, approval of the bills against the city of Moab. Tawny?
Before I move to approve these, as I was looking through them, and I don't exactly know our procurement policy verbatim. Sorry. I think there's a lot that we buy that maybe we could look at buying locally versus doing online.
Paying shipping?
That and just being good neighbors.
Yep.
That would be my suggestion. If you want to sit with me and go over some of these, I'm happy to do that.
I would be glad to do that.
Okay, I think there's a lot
Yeah.
that we can,
We've tried to even just clean up the shipping we were doing when I started reviewing them, multiple orders on the same day from the same places. And I was like, what are we doing? We were paying shipping on 3 or 4 orders. And I'm like, just keep tabs of what you're doing and order all at once at the end of the week rather than. So we've tried to clean it up to a degree, but I'll be glad to go over and see what we can do to get rid of all the shipping and keep it local.
Do you recommend that we do that informally, or do you recommend that we do that as a policy?
let Joel and I sit down and talk about it, and
We could sit down and talk about it, and then depending on how we work it out, we could just do it as an administrative directive
Yeah.
from me to staff.
yeah, because our last check that we wrote to Amazon was almost $3,400.
Yep.
3387.41.
And it's almost every department has an Amazon Prime account.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But they all don't? I'll get to the bottom of that.
I mean,
Well, they want to watch different movies at
And
the same time.
I am sure some of this stuff just is not available locally.
Yeah.
I'm sure, but I know Sharpies are.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I was paying the bills, I noticed that there's inconsistency on purchasing recycled content paper products. And so that's one area. I realize there may be a cost difference, and so I'm not set on this, but in terms of supporting the other end of the waste management, where creating demand for recycled fiber.
Does council approve our procurement policy?
Absolutely. Absolutely you do. It probably hasn't, I mean, I wouldn't even know when the last time it was reviewed.
It was recently
wasn't
updated,
too long
I
ago.
think,
Yeah.
2016, 2017.
Yeah, maybe
something
even
along
since
those
then, we
lines.
can ask Rachel, but I feel like I read it not too long ago.
Yeah, I know when I got here and we started reviewing things, it was one of the newer things, because it wasn't one of the ones that's floated to the top, like we need to look at that. And I mean, it was one of the things that had been done more recently.
It's not really long, but I don't think when we passed that last one that we made any specification about a cost differential if we bought local versus online. I don't think we got that detailed about it.
We didn't. That's not in the current policy.
And it's the sort of thing you want to review every 2 or 3 years anyways. It's not one you want to pass and sit on. So it's probably about due to bring it back.
If it's worth just passing along, that I've talked to the 2 local office supply stores, and they are willing to try to match, and if they can't match prices that you guys are finding on Amazon, that they would try to come close.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of, we need an order of things, we need things, and you start trying to do cost matching, but we just need to make it a priority and start taking the time to do it. So it's a convenience thing sometimes.
In my other world, I buy most everything locally.
Yeah.
And there's not.
Yeah, we just need to.
It's pennies.
Yeah, shifting culture. That's what we need.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they deliver for free.
Yes, they do.
Just saying.
One of the
On
2.
the broken backs of some of their employees, might I add.
2 delivers. For free.
Yes.
Okay.
Free shipping.
I move to approve the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $1,704,777.29.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Tawny, thank you. Karen, discussion further? All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
9:01, you did it.
Dun, dun,
Give you a minute.
dun.